Thank you everyone who is tuning in to learn a little bit more about the Sustainable Doghouse Challenge. It is going to be the 5th year that we host the Sustainable Doghouse Challenge. And this one's going to be a little bit interesting because it's going to be all virtual. So in the past, of course, we've built physical doghouses and displayed those for people to see. This year, of course, it'll be a little different, and we'll talk a little bit about why and what that means, and hopefully that's the reason you're here. So some quick things. The doghouse competition is going to be April 7th. It's going to be all virtual, like I mentioned, and hopefully you will be the one that is attending. A little bit about myself. My name is Hayden Fritz. I'm a graduate student in the Civil Architectural Environmental Engineering Department. I have been in the competition in some form for all 5 years. So the first year I was actually a competitor, second year I was a judge, and then the third and fourth year I helped run the competition. This year I'm helping run the competition again. So you might be asking yourself, why the Sustainable Doghouse? It was started back in 2016 by the department chair at the time, Dr. Richard Corsi, and he was an avid dog lover, and he decided to combine the ideas of the Civil Architectural and Environmental Engineering Department with his love of dogs, and came up with, why don't we build a doghouse out of entirely recycled materials, see how many green features we can throw on there, and make it a fun competition for students to enjoy. It also allows students to kind of showcase the knowledge that they've gained in the classroom, so you can kind of use some of the ideas and information that have been taught to you in the classroom and put it to work in a physical doghouse. And it's going to be very important in all of our careers in the future to think sustainably. And so this kind of helps, students start to think, okay, how can I design this, or how can I work this in a sustainable manner? So this year, like I mentioned, we're going all virtual. We are still in a pandemic, and we want to make sure that students stay safe. So in years past, you would go out around Austin, you would scavenge materials, you would find them, you'd come bring them back together with your team, you would build them, typically in the ECJ basement, there'd be other teams around. There's just a lot of people and a lot of possibilities for you to contract the virus and spread it to your peers, and that's just not a good mix. In addition, some students might not even be here in Austin, right? You actually might be back home, wherever that might be, whether it's in Texas or in a different state. But either way, it's still hard to come to Austin and to find materials and to meet with your team and build. Wanted to keep it virtual because it's going to make it easier on you and keep you all safe. So rather than build a physical model, we're going to ask you to build a virtual model. So you're going to use some sort of design software, which we'll talk about here in a bit, to design your doghouse. The actual event will be held virtually as well. So we are going to try and use this platform called GatherTown, which I'll show you here. It's like an old style video game where you walk around and you can interact with people. And so as you get closer to someone, your video and your audio fade in, and as you move away, that audio and video can start to fade away. Otherwise, it's like a normal video conferencing tool. So you can set up any kind of environment. So we'll actually model one just like the ECJ Plaza where the doghouse competition is typically held. We'll have it set up like this poster session here. People can come up to your poster, which will just have static images of your doghouse, and they can look at your doghouse. You can even have videos in there if you want to show a time lapse. And then you will hopefully be there, and so then they can come closer to you, have your video and audio come together and chat a little bit about your doghouse. So that's the idea there. It's a pretty neat tool. You might actually spend 5 or 10 minutes during the actual event just walking around. It's kind of fun just to see how it works. That's the idea with GatherTown. Now I'm talking a little bit more about the nitty-gritty of the competition. In terms of eligibility, all CAEE students are eligible to participate, from first-year students to graduate students. Because there's a little bit of difference in your knowledge base because of your schooling, we'll split it into a lower and an upper division. So lower division will be primarily first and second year students. Upper division will be everyone after that, so third, fourth into graduate school. You might have one or two friends who is a third year student where you and your crew are second year students. That's okay. We'll kind of chat about where you should really be put, whether it's lower or upper, and it kind of depends on that third year student. Did they just transfer into CAEE? Have they been here a while? Those things will kind of dictate whether you get pushed into the upper division or you stay in the lower division. In terms of students who can participate, again, you might have a friend who's outside of the department. That's okay. We want your team to still be primarily CAEE students. You can't have, 3 of your ME buddies come join you on a team, but we want to stick to the CAEE department, showcase what we can do. In terms of the different categories that you will be judged on during the day of the event, they are listed here, and I'll go into them a little bit more in detail. The main category is going to be sustainability. This is where you're going to get most of your points. It is the Sustainable Doghouse Challenge. Within sustainability, there's 2 main subcategories, subgroups. The first subcategory is material considerations. So you want to make sure that you're using primarily recycled materials And you want to make sure you're using materials that can be easily salvaged or found around the Austin area. One of the problems of the virtual competition is that it's easy to go a little overboard. But remember, if you were actually building the doghouse, you would have no budget. You don't get any money to buy materials. So think about that when you're designing it virtually. If you're trying to buy something expensive, that wouldn't really work. The second subcategory is green features. So while recycled materials are great, and that's kind of the primary basis for this category, we want y'all to kind of go a little bit outside the box and incorporate some sort of green features. You can see up here in this top right photo, they had a green roof. They also had these cans around the edge that would gather rainwater. So think about how you can incorporate some sort of green features like that. I'm sure there are plenty out there that you might be able to incorporate into your actual design. The second category that's going to probably get you the most bang for your buck is the structure category. And within the structure category, there's three main subcategories. So you have strength, durability, and viability. For strength, we want to see how strong and how secure your doghouse is, right? Is it flimsy, or are things going to fall over? Can it get knocked over even? Those are the kind of things we'll look for in the strength category. In terms of durability, this is really more about the weather. Doghouses are designed for the outdoor conditions, right? So make sure you take into account all the types of weather you can experience: rain, sun, even snow. It did snow about a month or so ago. Wind, those kind of things. Make sure your doghouse can withstand all of those elements. And then the last one kind of speaks again to this virtual design aspect, and that is, can you actually build the design? So it's very easy to get caught up in the design software and make something very elaborate, but if it doesn't actually follow the laws of physics, it's going to be very hard to build. But think about if you're going to actually build this for the competition. Could you actually build it? And that might save you from making some design choices that might ding you in this category. Creativity kind of goes along with that. Again, you don't want to go overboard, but you have this software that you can leverage. In terms of material access, you don't have to be limited by what you could find in Austin, right? So for instance, this doghouse over here, this back part right here is actually half of a canoe that they found lying around Austin, but that was very rare, right? Finding a canoe around Austin is probably hard to do. But that's okay, and those are the kind of things that you can use. So maybe you have this idea to retrofit an old twin bed, but you don't actually want to use your twin bed. You can still use a twin bed because you have this design software, so you can design and create your own twin bed or import it from one of the libraries if they exist, and then use that to create your doghouse. So you're not necessarily limited by if it's actually out there or if you actually want to use your twin bed, right? So you can use your software a little bit like that. So you might think about what random items, what interesting items can I salvage into a doghouse. But again, don't go overboard. Think about things that you could find in the Austin area. So the next category is comfort. You want to make sure that the materials you're using aren't going to be sharp or have pointed edges that could, hurt the dog a little bit. You also want these ideas of climate control. So you want to design your doghouse so that the dog would be comfortable in hot weather as well as cold weather. Providing some sort of ventilation in the hot weather would be great. Providing some sort of insulation, whether it's some sort of blankets or something so that the dog can remain warm when it gets cold. Those are all good things to consider when building your doghouse. The last thing to remember is that the doghouse is a shelter, so make sure you have a floor, 4 walls, and a roof, right? You want to make sure that you're protecting the dog from the elements, which goes back to that structure category, and you want to make sure the doghouse is raised. We got feedback from some of the shelters that said the doghouses need to be raised to protect dogs from flooding or anything like that. The healthy category isn't going to be weighted as heavily as it has in years past, and that's just because we're in a virtual space rather than a physical space, so some of these things that we've historically graded you on in the healthy category aren't as easy to do in virtual space. But when you're selecting your materials, remember that dogs, they lick, they bite things, so they might ingest some sort of materials that are on your doghouse. So make sure you're being careful not choosing something that if they do ingest, they would get sick, so try not to make a doghouse out of chocolate, for instance. Make sure that you're not actually painting the doghouse or applying any finishes, and if you do, that's fine. Make sure they're safe though. Make sure they're not off-gassing any nasty things. Make sure that if the dog were to lick the side of the doghouse, that they're not going to ingest any harmful compounds. The software category is like the craftsmanship category we've had in the past. So it's important to understand that we're judging you on the use of the software and not your ability with the software. This is more like making sure that you are using layers, naming your objects, that you're organizing your project very well. And it's also about making sure everything is flush, right? You want to make sure that you're lining up your materials, everything looks very nice, you're paying close attention to detail. It's not about your ability, but about how you're using it and making sure it's organized and looks professional. If this design file was given to someone else, could they open it and navigate through it with ease and understand everything that you did? The very last category is the video presentation. So this year, we're going to have you create a 5-minute video, do a couple days before the actual competition so that judges can watch the video prior to the competition. The idea is to highlight sustainable features, the design process, any ups or downs you might have had. It's important to include all team members. It doesn't necessarily have to be video and audio, but as long as you have maybe a voiceover of some of your teammates, maybe you're showing the video of some of your teammates looking around, creating some sort of aspect of your doghouse. And I want to emphasize that this is not a class presentation. A lot of the judges, probably about half of them, are going to be professors, so if anything, they don't want to see a class presentation. They want to see some creativity. They want you to make essentially a YouTube video, right? Something that could stand alone. You have B-roll, you have voiceovers. In SketchUp, I know you can do a fly-through of your model. That'd be really nice. You could have a time-lapse of your video, just unclick layers and have it come together while you're talking about some aspect of your doghouse. Be creative. Make sure that you're going a little above and beyond and not doing a presentation like I'm doing right now. So those are all the categories. Hopefully they make sense to you. And now we're going to talk a little bit about some of the considerations. So in terms of software, any software that you want to use is fine. We'll have 2 trainings for 2 specific types of software. SketchUp, which is most likely going to be the one that a lot of people use. It's easy to get up and running. It has all the functionality that you need. We'll have 1 training session, about 30 minutes, just about the basics and getting comfortable with the actual software, and you'll be able to ask questions. Then the second one will be slightly longer because it'll be about Rhino, which is a more complicated software. This is actually the software that the Archie students are going to be using in their future academic careers. So if you're a young Archie, you might consider coming to this training because it will give you a leg up when you actually get into YouTube and software. You don't have to attend these trainings. They're totally optional. There's great documentation online. You can find a lot of YouTube videos, nice articles about how to use both of these types of software. The other thing that's new this year is we're going to have all the information up on the GitHub website. So you'll have a link to all this information that I'm talking about, even in more depth, and you'll have important dates and things like that on the GitHub website. And then all the files that you might need are also there. So this presentation, for instance, the information packet, and I'll constantly be updating it with important dates and maybe some changes to categories as they might arise if there's any issues that pop up. So this is the wiki page. So there's some important notes about the registration deadline. There's some quick links right here, but you'll probably use these pages on the right here. You can navigate to the different ones. There's a little bit about the Sustainable Doghouse, a little bit about GitHub. You won't necessarily need to look here at the competition information because this is the physical competition. The virtual competition is probably where you're going to spend most of your time, so you can look at general information, you can look at the rules. If you want a refresher on the categories, you can also look at those. It goes into a little bit of depth on each of these. And then the last 2 tabs that you might want to be interested in is the important dates one. So as things pass, I'll kind of put a line through it, strike it through so you kind of know where we are. First information session, second information session, some trainings, deadline to register, and the actual competition day. I'll be adding more days as they pop up. And then we'll be updating the judges tab once we identify what judges will be in each category, so you can kind of see that and see who to expect in each category. These are the wiki pages. It's going to have a lot of information. Look around it if you want. You can even look at past winners. This one might actually be interesting to see some of the designs that won. The other part is the files. So that's actually going to be under code. So if you click on code, it'll take you to the files. You'll see we have one for 2021. We also have some pictures from past competitions that you can check out. But any files that are important that you'll need will be linked here. In terms of prizes, these are the prizes that have been historically given in the past. The numbers might change a little bit. For each division, we have a top place prize and a second place prize. The top place prize is $1,000. That's our top dog. The second place is $500. We also have the People's Choice Award, which is $500, and that's for the one that people vote on and they like the design the best. And it's important to note that if you win in the upper or lower division, you cannot win the People's Choice Award. So hopefully all that is clear. If not, my information will be in the description below this video. It's also on the GitHub page. If you navigate there, you can find it. So the first step is to form a team. It has to have at least 2 people on a team. You cannot do a lone wolf situation this year. You need to register your team online. There's a link for that in the GitHub page. There'll also be a link in the description of this video. If you want, you can attend a training session. Those will be later on in this month in February. And you want to design your doghouse, right? You want to actually figure out what software you're going to use, kind of brainstorm with your teammates. And then you want to make sure you record your presentation and submit it a few days before the competition. And that's it. So again, hopefully that makes sense. I'll be checking in periodically with teams just to make sure that everything's going okay, they don't have any questions, things like that. And you can't ask me any questions because you're not actually there. But again, feel free to email me. If you can't find my email, you can email the department and say, hey, I need to contact someone about the Sustainable Doghouse Challenge, and they'll forward you on to me. But hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully everything is clear. So hopefully you're excited. Hopefully you can register a team. Again, any questions, let me know. Have a great day.